Melons are to be eaten alone or left alone. Melons are to be eaten alone or left alone. Now here's the interesting part of melon. I can actually turn foods into people. Remember Mr. Potato Head when we were kids? I'm going to create Mr. Vegetable and Fruit Head here. The first guy we're going to make into a vegetable is Joe the Protein. He's a truck driver. He's a lorry driver. Big, muscular, 300-pound guy. The best truck driver on the planet. Every time he's in international competition, he wins the competition. Now, he's a smart guy and an efficient guy. If you look at your book, we're going to tell you what Joe is going to do. I say, Joe, you're going to get into your truck, your lorry, and you're going to drive down the digestive highway. You're going to start here at A, you're going to end here at Z. And you have a very narrow highway called the digestive highway. Only one vehicle can be on that highway at once. Joe, how long are you going to take to get here? Tell me.
4 hours, yeah.
He'll be there 3 hours and 59 minutes, as sure as I'm sitting here. The brakes are going to go on. He's going to stop at 4 hours. This driver starts off, and I remember this all the time in my past dietary life. Somewhere around here, Joe is driving in his truck. I yell, Miss Mellon! Vroom, vroom, a Ferrari comes up, convertible. Best Ferrari driver in the world. She wins all the competition. Never stops, aggressive. You have to go from point A to point Z, narrow digestive highway. How long are you going to take? 15, 20 minutes. She's not going to stop. So somewhere, how many of you remember, right about here, the Ferrari is going to hit the back of the truck, and then we have nice digestion ceases, indigestion begins. If your food doesn't digest, now what does digest mean? This is pretty simple stuff. The water goes out the front, the fiber goes out the back, and the nutrient goes where? Into the cell.
In the body, yeah.
You know, all the education I've had, which is a whole lot, by the way, nobody ever told me that. They told me digestion occurred in the digestive tract. That's dumb. Factory that breaks down the food to water, fiber. The nutrient goes into the cell. You're made of cells. You're not made of digestive tract. You follow? Mm-hmm. That's so. Because if you, in fact, do not digest the food, it only has one option, where you die. You become septic. So undigested food rots in your body, becomes poison. This is not a joke, by the way, or an embellishment. Becomes poison. And you would actually die if you kept putting food in, as I did every day of my life, until I learned this. And you become more and more acid. Now, so with all of that said, what we understand is that your body knows how to break these things down. Now, how many of you ever remember you always felt acid? You always felt like bloated? You always felt like noxious poisoning. Then I'd be sedative again. Every night I'd come home, my mother would have a new cake. This is not a joke. She'd make an entire cake that I'd eat 80% of it every day. Because I was sort of a pioneer in being obese. They called me big. So I thought, big's good for a boy. So I kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I was getting fatter and fatter and fatter. So it was about 11 o'clock and be sedated at 3 o'clock when I came home again. How many of you remember that cycle? Mm-hmm. And always indigestion, always bloating, constipated. I mean, I thought it was normal not to go to the bathroom. My mother was proud. When we went on 1 week holidays, well, I'm not going to use any public restrooms. So she actually taught us as children not to go to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom? No, you don't go to the bathroom. Now all I do is tell people, poop, poop. I'm a poop expert. She's rolling around in her grave, the poor woman.
Eaten alone or left alone.
Because they are a rocket ship that go through your body. It's intense. So now you're starting to get a pretty good common sense reason. It's not only the enzymes that either break these down rapidly or not, they're compatible, but it's the speed in which these things go through the body. This is why anyone who does not take the chemistry of food into account when we're digesting. Now remember, nomads were eating one food at a time. Have you ever noticed the strongest creatures in the world eat one food at a time? What's the strongest creature in the world? Anyone know? What?
Gorilla.
Lion.
A gorilla.
Oh, gorilla.
Gorilla. Gorilla can take a 200-pound man,
Right,
this is not a
that's,
joke,
yeah, okay, I knew
with
that.
one hand
You
and
knew
throw
that,
him
we knew
across
that.
an entire football field. And what does a gorilla in nature eat? Sprouts.
Oh, sprouts.
Doesn't eat fruits. When they're tracking gorillas versus monkeys eat fruit. Like this. Gorillas, you don't want to screw with a gorilla. And my favorite place in Florida is Busch Gardens. I go over to Busch Gardens, I just watch those gorillas for an hour. They're looking at me. You ever see them looking at me? Come on, try. They actually pull the plant out, clean it off a bit, and eat the sprouts of the plant. They have it. They have it. And we have been all taught the wrong thing. Now, again, as I said to you yesterday, I think the original diet of humans was fruit. No question. Greens. Greens were always used for healing. But guess what? The fruits have all been hybrid to have massive amounts of sugar in it now. Your pancreas no longer works, and we all need to be healing 24 hours a day. We live on a septic planet. You don't live on a planet that was... Do you realize the anthropological scientists now tell us, the atmospheric scientists tell us that the oxygen was 7 times greater? Yeah. So if that happened to you and I, we'd pass out. We'd pass out. The air would be so light. We also know that there was no pollution to speak about. Everything was organic. You didn't have to go to the whole wallet market and spend more for less. Out of the topsoil in the last century. Imagine how incredible the food must have tasted 1,000 years ago. Just amazing. And you think people were cooking food and eating animals? No. It didn't make sense that people ate animals. The anthropologists are wrong on that too. I do a 3-hour presentation on the true history of human diet. And I actually show you, because we have it now. This isn't like I really labor over this stuff. I work years to get these things together. I show you pictures of what your ancestors look like. We know the different tribes and where they went. We know why they went there, because their DNA and RNA are their bones. And we know how they migrated from Africa. And here, some of these poor idiots went to Scandinavia and hung out there. Some of them went to Ireland, where my family's from. What are you joking about? Italy. Eating and having fun. Hey, how are you doing? Okay, great. But then they ended up in Sweden, and a snowstorm came, and they were starving. Now, let me tell you, I am a committed bigot. But if I were starving and my children were starving, guess what? I'd probably do the same thing they did. That's how meat eating started. Nobody's ever going to tell me you needed to eat meat. You're not built to eat meat. No way in the world. Do I look like I'm dying? I haven't eaten meat in 46 years. I haven't touched meat. I haven't taken dairy food. My children have never taken dairy. My 7 grandchildren have never taken dairy food. Never taken meat.
Holy man.
Flourished. Not one of my children went through college. One's in college now. Ever got sick one day. The teachers would write notes. Good student, odd, he's never sick. I mean, it's like odd. It's odd he's not sick. What's wrong? Do you make him come? Is he really sick and he doesn't tell us in class? No, like it's an oddity that my child didn't take off from colds or flus or something like that. Now, I'm not saying this to impress you. I'm telling you what normality looks like. And I'm showing you what stupidity is. We accept marginal lifestyles. We accept illness, disease, premature aging, and disorder. We think that's normal. And why it continues to perpetuate is we accept it as normal. It is not normal to age prematurely. It's not normal to get cancer. 57% of the public's going to get cancer. It's not normal that the #1 killer of our babies below 5 is cancer. Not accidents, cancer of the brain. #1 killer of our babies. That's not normal. It's not normal that 2 out of 3 people are getting diabetes are below 16 years old. It's not normal that 72% of our children below 21, when they did autopsies on the dead bodies of them, have cardiovascular disease. That's not normal. But what is normal, seemingly, is corporate interest that will squelch the information and tell you, don't worry, get sick, the doctors will take care of you with drugs you have to pay for. Just send in money to the American Cancer Society, the British Heart Association, the Canadian Diabetic Association. These poor companies, the pharmaceutical companies, have no money to do their own research. Fund the research so they can screw you by charging you for the pharmaceuticals. And you think that's normal. But you don't think it's normal to eat sprouts. What the hell's wrong with you? Come on, really, wake up. Wake up. I was you. I was worse than you. I was the most brain-dead individual on the planet Earth. I was completely sleeping. I had no awareness of anything. I didn't want to be aware of anything. And every time I became aware of something, I took another toke on the grass. I didn't want to see anything, feel anything, know anything. I would eat and smoke grass. And that's my whole youth. That's all I remember. Smoke. I don't know how I even functioned. I don't know how I went to school. I don't know how I drove a car. I was doped up and eating and fat. Can you imagine this? And so I get you don't want to see. People say, I don't want to know all that. Well, you better know that, because nobody's watching out for you. The only one watching out for you is you. You think God's watching out for you? God gave you a free will. God, the day he gave you a free will, went off the job. You have got to take care of yourself. And those of you who call yourself spiritually awakened, most of you are full of crap. I'm going to tell you right now. You're disrespectful to your body. You're disrespectful to the gift of life you have. You're disrespectful. The only one I believe is spiritual takes complete responsibility for every aspect of his life or her life. If you're not doing that, don't give me your nonsense, your rituals and rhetoric. Life is serious, and it can be a lot of fun, but you got to take the wheel and you've got to drive the life. You can't just take your hands off the wheel and when it crashes, oh, I don't know how it crashed. Well, you do know how it crashed. You're an idiot. You didn't take responsibility. That's how it crashed. I mean, it's pretty simple stuff. So now I'm going to quiz you.